Welcome all of you to my new tutorial. Today I'm gonna show you how to build one of those telephone poles. They are super easy and super cheap to build. They are perfect for beginners and they look awesome when combined with one of my roads. You can find a tutorial on how to build one of those roads in one of my other videos on my channel. So let's go! We'll start with the most important part first. For this we'll need from Evergreen Scale Models the 226 will mark of 14 centimeters. In real scale, it would be much higher, but believe me, when you have it on your wargaming table, 14 centimeters is sufficient. Now cut it at the 14 centimeters and clear the edge. Now we're doing the crossbar, also Evergreen Scale Models, the 145. We need 4.5 centimeters. Clear the edge. Mark the center with a point. Now we have two of the parts we need. Now we're going for these two parts. Using Evergreen's 113. We need a 45-degree angle. That's totally easy if you have a cutting mat. Here you go. I use just rods, not too fancy shit over here. If you want, of course, there are many options to make it even more realistic. But as I tend to play with it, these break off from time to time and I can just use one rod and repair it. I need 4 pieces, each half a centimeter. So these are the basic parts and look like this when put together. Now it's time for our plastic glue. Put one dot here on your marking. Place it at along one of those lines here in the middle. So now we can, with 1 centimeter above, center this stick in a perfect 90-degree angle. And add those 4 pieces here. Also add these 1 centimeter lines. Give it some time to rest and dry. I just realized that I was too dumb to measure 14 centimeters. Now it's the correct length. I just cut this one off here. Now onto these two parts. First one small dot here with your plastic glue and then down here. And should be centered here and touching best in the middle of the cross bar, something like this. Then onto the other bit here and a bit here. Just trying to make it more visible for the camera. So looks like this. Another drop in the middle just to make sure. All right. So now onto the base. I use from Evergreen Scale Models the polystyrene 9040, which is a 1mm thick styrene sheet. That's a small rest. I'm using a 4 by 3 centimeter base. So let's mark 4 by 3 centimeters. Cut your plastic. Normally I used to cut before I break it, and this way you get a clean edge. Just scrape with your knife over it, and also the edges above and below on all 4 sides. If you go with your finger over it and feel that it isn't smooth, then just go over it with your knife again, and then this part is finished. The next step is for those of you that also have built my road. It gives it much more stability when this side is placed under the road. You can skip it if you don't have it. If you don't use it with my road, best glue some weight on here before adding the pole itself. Just add some plastic glue. One centimeter on this side. A 45-degree angle. That's where I cut, and then 2 centimeters right about here. Two centimeters, and then you have that 45-degree angle. Now these parts go off, and we cut along those lines. The 0.5 millimeter styrene sheet just needs one cut before you break it. See, it's that easy. Now go along all those sides, and then we add the pole itself to the base. Now we add the pole 1 centimeter from the back part and right here in the middle. So we're adding glue here. And place it directly above this point. Make sure that you have a 90-degree angle here. And that it's standing upright. Now we need some green stuff. Don't be afraid, it won't be too complicated. Pretty warm in here. That much should be okay. Knead it good together. As a friend once said, It's called green stuff, not blue and yellow stuff. Here we go. We need a tiny bit. That's too much. Just this small dot. Form a little ball. Place it right here in the center. And with your knife, push it down so you get a small circle. If it doesn't stick, try the same again. It always helps if your knife is a bit wet. So, pushing down. Something like this. And a bigger ball. For the top also, make a ball. Place it on top here. Make a small top with your finger. Just by gently tapping. There shouldn't be any fingerprints, just tapping with your finger until it looks something like this. Now set it aside, let it dry, and when it's dry, we spray paint it. Wraithbone. You could also use any other color, doesn't matter now. We'll start with some contrast snakebite leather, and all you need is an old brush. No detail work here. Apply it and make downwards movements. What we want to paint is just this crossbar, nothing more. The downwards movement is because the weather will move all the dirt, grime and stuff down. You don't want those dark spots that sometimes are created down here. So if a small sea is building, just go over it while it's still wet. Then let this layer dry. Now these V parts and the dot gain a coat of ashen gray. If you want to, you can use your normal brush. I'll start with that old brush, because I'm saving my good ones for some more detail work. But it's okay if you use your good brushes here. It's all a question of practice. Those are the metal parts, and in my world they won't be shining again. They're just too old. I'll start with some administratum gray up here. Paint all 4 tubes. Then go for some ceramide white. It's become pretty dry, huh? I'll take care of that later. And dry brush. It's best to do that while the gray is still wet, so you get some color transitions. But it's totally fine not to do that. If you're a beginner, don't become intimidated. It's a bit like wet and wet, and you don't have to do it now. We'll make it dusty and dirty later, and you will see, let's say, just a bit of it in the end. Normally, you should do your colors on a wet palette or normal palette and not go directly from the pot, but I'll try to keep it beginner friendly. Next is the pole itself. I'll start with a coat of Rhinox hide. For the areas around the other parts, I'll use this brush. And for the larger parts, I'll go with this big, I don't know, it's size 8. Try to focus on how good it will look at your table when it's finished to keep your motivation up. Now onto the big brush.
And also here.
Up and downward strokes. So you get the wood structure right. All right, now let it dry, and then we'll add the next layer to the brown. To make the post itself a bit more brighter, like on this one, we begin with Mornfang Brown. Don't use the tip of the brush, more the broad side. Then make up and down movements. Don't cover the whole post. We want a, let's call it, wood-like structure. When you realize that you have made a mistake, take clear water on your brush, and before the color has a chance to dry, brush with water over it until you no longer see it. Now let this part dry and paint another part of your post instead. Bit on top. And in the middle part, if you're brave enough, use your big brush or go for another one. Now let this one dry. And you can go, if you want to, one step higher I'm using XV80A brown. Just in the middle, not over the whole part. Only gently. And as long as it is a bit wet, I'll use my finger to fade it out.
I'll glue this on now.
And then if you see some spots like this, just go over it a bit with your Rhinox brown. You can always use your finger to wipe away a bit of the brown. Until you're happy with the result. I'd say it's fine now. Now some Ashen Gray. Wipe your brush really good off, because we don't want to dry brush too much here. And now we're going to dry brush some dust on this one, just like I did on this here. We begin with Baylor Brown and a big dry brush. Downward strokes and a bit crisscross. And some tapping. We want the dust to be on top of the pole itself, on the crossbar, on those parts, and also a bit here on those metal parts. If you think it's too much, use your finger before the brush dries, before the color dries, I'm sorry. And now I'm going to a bit smaller brush for these parts over here. All right, I'm pretty happy so far. So let's go to the second color of our dustying. Ushabti-Bone, a classic. Don't dry brush as much with the first layer, because we want both colors to be seen.
I'll work with a smaller brush.
And this mistake. Put water on my brush and take the color off that shouldn't be there. Not too much. I don't want to scrape off till I see the white. So this looks pretty dusty now. I'm happy. I think it's okay. Now Second attempt to glue it on the base. Also with my plastic glue. A bit more this time. You never know. Check if it's straight. All right. And as I'm doing these bases, when the glue is dried, I painted Ushabti bone. You can do whatever color you like. Best use the same color as you do for the bases of your miniatures. You don't need to also color this part because it won't be seen in the end. And don't forget the sides on the base. Don't just paint the top. All right, I put it aside, let it dry. And then the next step would be to add the sand, the flocking, and if you want to, a stone. We begin with some yellow sand, apply it onto the base. And I apply my glue mixture. It's 50% glue, 50% wood glue, 50% water, and just 1 drop of dish soap. You're looking for a milky consistency. And apply that to the base to fix the sand in place. The sand I'm using is normally for terrariums. If you have scorpions or something like that, then they would live in a, I call it terrarium. I hope that's right. Now,
After the yellow sand is done,
we add some sprinkles of white sand to give it a bit of color variation. Not too much here. As many as you like. And then my woodland scenic fine turf, burnt grass. Also that we have some green spots in there. And if you're looking for some bigger flocking, I'll use from the company Noch, also Woodland Scenics. They're working together, Turf 95220. Looks especially good when you put it around the base of your pole. Well, that's a bit too much, to be honest. Now this looks good. Also apply some of your glue mixture. To seal it all in place. And now I'm using this wooden part here because we want a good 90-degree angle here, so we can put this base under our road. Yeah, you could also use that old brush. Has seen a lot. Just add some water. And off we go. Now be careful, leave this to dry overnight. And tomorrow it will look fantastic. Believe me. So, good night, see you tomorrow. And here we have our finished piece. I'd recommend build, let's say, 3 of those for your gaming table. And you could also, like I showed you here, you have the option to build 2 crossbars. And if you look at American telephone poles, you don't always have an equal number. Sometimes you have these dots, just 1 on one side and 2 on the other, whatever. And you can also, like I did here, use a smaller tube, cut it at an angle here, glue it to the tube itself. I've used the Evergreen 224 for this. And now that they're ready, let's put them on the table. Let's show you why I built those parts on the bases. You can just slide it under the road and now it's so stable. Can't knock it around when you're playing. See, nothing happens. It won't fall over. And now they're finished. I hope you had fun watching this video, have fun building your own, and see you next time.